you look at a wicked city, you can look at, in this scenario, as their past, like a wicked past. When you are trying to escape that, if you look back and you continue to dwell on these things, it will freeze you.
Is there anything that you cannot achieve if you genuinely put your mind to it and follow me, the best you that does exist within yourself? If you pursue it wholeheartedly, you can do it.
My senior year, I did theater. I wish I had done it all 4 years.
Oh, there's so many things I wish I would have gotten into younger.
Yeah, we might turn into salt if we continue to look back on that.
I know, because I'm full of caffeine and I just
Prime.
enjoy these conversations. Yeah, Prime Energy, brought to you by Prime Energy. Not the hydration drink, though. That's bullshit. Okay, are we recording audio this time?
Yes.
Epic. All right, welcome back to Biblecast, everybody. Happy Thursday morning. Today we're going to be going over the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and thankfully I'm feeling a little bit more confident in my interpretation of these stories than we were about the circumcision.
Yeah.
Most of what I could find, even watching other people's interpretations of the circumcision, was just kind of that surface level, interpretation that we came to, where it is about sacrificing a part of yourself as a symbol of remaining dedicated to that faith. So that made me feel a little bit better. It's like, okay, even like Jordan Peterson is just coming to that conclusion. Maybe that's all it is. Yeah, maybe we're just thinking too hard about some of these things. I don't know. Too hard. Yes. But
Phrasing.
yeah, so destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Let's get into it.
Sponsored by Prime.
Sponsored by Prime Energy. Worst fights I've ever seen yesterday, by the way. Both of you guys fucking suck. Okay, so before we get to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, there's another kind of a little mini story in between, like there was before the flood.
Okay.
So 3 visitors are sent from God to see Abraham and his wife. Now, the identities of these men are kind of ambiguous in the Bible. So it says, the Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre while he was sitting at his tent door in the heat of the day. When he raised his eyes and looked, behold, 3 men were standing opposite him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed down to the ground. So it's not really made 100% clear if these are just 3 holy men. Certain translations of the Bible say 3 angels. It could be 2 holy men and God. It could be 2 angels and God. I think that ambiguity might be intentional to a certain extent. But Abraham said, "My Lord, if I now have found your favor in your sight, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and make yourselves comfortable under the tree, and I will bring a piece of bread so that you may refresh yourselves. After that you may go on, since you have visited your servant." And they said, "So do as you have said." So Abraham hurried into his tent to Sarah and said, "Quickly, prepare 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make bread cakes." Bread cakes.
Yummy.
Yeah. Abraham also ran to the herd and took a tender and choice calf and gave it to the servant, and he hurried to prepare it. He took curds and milk and the calf which he had prepared and set it before them, and he was standing by them under the tree as they ate. The word "it" is italicized like every other time it's written there. I don't know why. Anyway, then they said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There in the tent." He said, "I will certainly return to you at this time next year, and behold, your wife Sarah will have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door, which was behind him. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old. At this point, they're about 100. So she is past childbearing age. Both Abraham and Sarah are skeptical of this, but Sarah is openly skeptical about it and laughs at the idea that she might even experience sexual pleasure at this age, much less have a child. And that is actually mentioned in the Bible, which I thought was interesting.
Really?
Yeah. At least in certain translations. Again, it varies from translation to translation, like even just certain lines.
Which I think emphasizes our point, and like these different translations add to the fact that These are interpretations all the way from the beginning. So these are meant to be interpreted in some way.
Yeah, even in all of these different modern interpretations, there are things that are left out, things that are worded completely differently, and that's the different interpretations of this time. So God only knows how different these interpretations were beyond these several different books 1,000 years ago.
Right.
So, but God asks Abraham, why did Sarah laugh? You know, like is nothing impossible is anything not possible through my hand, basically? Is there anything that the Lord cannot do? And then Sarah denied laughing, and God said to her, no, actually, you did laugh. So that, yeah. So, and it's basically left at that. It's left at that. That's the end of that paragraph. She says, "I didn't laugh." Yes, you did. So then the three men rose up from there and looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham was walking with them and send them off. The Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do?" So it's almost like in our interpretation, God being your conscience, it's almost like his own conscience is trying to shield him from what he needs to do to a certain degree. Like maybe there is some sort of subconscious call to rid the world of evil, even if you aren't prepared to accept what that might entail. It's kind of what I'm getting from that. But anyway, so he says, "Shall I hide what I am about to do from Abraham, since he will certainly become a great and mighty nation, and in him all nations on earth will be blessed? For I have chosen him, so that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what he has spoken about him." And the Lord said, "The outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly grave. I will go down now and see whether or not they have done entirely as the outcry which has come to me indicates, and if not, I will know." So basically he's saying, I need to go investigate and see if this outcry of sin and just debaucherous living is actually as great as I am feeling right now. So then Abraham appeals for Sodom and basically gets into a back and forth with God where he is like, if there are so much as 50 people within this great city that is full of sin, would you really wipe out everybody, including those 50 people, just to rid the world of the sin of the rest of the city? And God said, if you were able to find 50 righteous people there, then no, I would not wipe it away. And then Abraham goes again, and he says, please don't be upset with me, but I'm going to keep going. What if I could only find 40? And God says, yeah, sure, if you could find 40, then I would spare it. And he says, what about 30? Fine. What about 20? What about 10? And God says, every time, if you could find that many righteous people there, then sure, I will spare them. So they have this non-aggressive back and forth where God is not upset with Abraham for asking these questions, where it's like, are you sure your potential decision to destroy this city is just? Are you sure about that? What if there are good people there? Then would it be okay to maybe not destroy the entire city for the sake of these few righteous people? And God says, sure, you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe I won't destroy it if you can find righteous people there. So I thought that was very interesting. Typically Old Testament God is very...
wipe them.
Wipe them out.
Yeah.
Also very against anybody questioning his will, even if it is not aggressive, and like I say, he's not asking aggressively. He's not like, really? Yeah, right. You're going to risk wiping out these good people too? He's just calmly asking him, what if we can find a few good people there? Would you spare them? He's like, yeah, sure. Why not? So from there, it says, as soon as he had finished speaking to Abraham, the Lord departed, and Abraham returned to his place. Now, on to the doom of Sodom, as the chapter is called in this version of the Bible. So, actually, go over to my notes here instead of actually reading it bit by bit.
While you're going to those real quick, I think
Absolutely.
we hear, you hear artists like, even if this song helps one person, it's worth it. And even if, athletes say the same thing, or all these people in different public positions say certain things like that, even if it helps one person, it would be worth it. I think even we've mentioned, like, even if this Bible helps one person.
That came to my mind as soon as you said that. We recently had that discussion where we would both be extremely fulfilled if this podcast helped a single person just like start to get their shit together, get through a tough time. I would be extremely happy about that.
I think, and even 40 people. What about 30 people, God? What about 20 people? It's like even just one person. Mm-hmm. Can we make a difference? Like, that is enough to set the foundation for a butterfly effect across time.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that. Let's see. So, all right. God considers not telling Abraham. God deems. Okay. So, the holy men that originally came to visit Abraham, either with God or on God's account. Again, that's kind of left ambiguous, which I think might be relevant, and I'll get into that whenever we finish up the story. But they go to Sodom, and they meet Lot, who is living, I think, in Sodom at this point, not on the outskirts anymore, but he's living in Sodom, and these holy men come to his door, and Lot offers them food and a place to rest. They initially decline, but Lot insists, and eventually they relent, and they come in and allow him to offer his hospitality, basically. So Lot, on his own, is an example of good within Sodom. He is one person that is certainly not beyond salvation within this city that is full of sin. Let's see. Then the people of Sodom realize that these holy men are in Lot's house, and so they surround his house. An angry mob shows up at Lot's house, and they demand that Lot hand over these three holy men so that they can rape them. Is what? Let me pull up this. So, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may have relations with them. So, give them over. We want to fuck them. And so, Lot, in what I can only describe as the response of a completely irrational person, says, why would I offer you these holy men? Wait a minute. I have 2 daughters that have never been touched by men. Why don't I give you them instead? So it's like,
okay.
My notes say I'm genuinely lost here.
Yeah. I can't deduct anything from that right now.
Why rape these strangers when instead you could rape my daughters? I don't see. The best I could come up with there is, we'll get to that later.
Maybe
we'll
foreshadowing
get to
to Abraham sacrificing Isaac. Like, I'm grasping at straws here.
Could be a little something like that. My idea was about sacrifice as well. Okay. So we'll get into that. But so the men of Sodom are very angry. They do not want the daughters. They want to fuck the angels or holy men, whoever they are. And so they attempt to take Lot so that they can rape him, maybe? But the holy men save Lot and blind the attackers with a brilliant light. So they fend them off, but the holy men fend the men of Sodom off with this blinding light in order to save Lot, pull him inside. Now, at this point, the holy men have seen enough. They're like, okay, no, this place is beyond repair. Sodom is damned. It's going to be destroyed. But they tell Lot to leave with all of his family. They say, get your daughters, get your wife, get your soon-to-be sons-in-law, because I think his daughters were engaged to be married to these people. They tell him, get your people and get the fuck out of here. We are going to destroy this place, and you need to go. So Lot hesitates to leave, but the holy men insist, and they tell him to flee to the hills and not look back. Lot says he will be overtaken by disaster and die if he does this, which I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why he is so opposed to fleeing into the hills specifically. So he asks if he can go to a nearby city called Zor. And the holy men say, that's fine. Go to Zor. We will not destroy Zor. So he leaves, starts heading towards Zor, and then God destroys the cities. And let's see.
Assuming there were no holy men left in them, or no people of character left in these
No people worth saving. Yeah, and I think that that's what the interaction at Lot's house was kind of alluding to. It's just that, no, this is what this city is about. Lot is the only saving grace in this city, him and his people, so get them the fuck out of here. Everybody else has got to go. That's what I took away from it. So, let's see. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot came to Zor. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the surrounding area and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife, from behind him, looked back. Now before they ran away, the holy men told them, run away and do not look back. Specifically said, do not look back. So as they're fleeing, she looked back and was turned to a pillar of salt. So then after that, Abraham got up early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the surrounding area, and behold, he saw the smoke of the land ascended like the smoke of a furnace. So it came about when God destroyed the cities of the surrounding area that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the destruction when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. And that's the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Can I say something of the first thing that comes to mind?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you go first as far as all of your interpretation goes.
I think when you look at a wicked city, you can look at in this scenario as their past, like a wicked past. You know, you can think of all of the horrible things that you've done. And when you were trying to escape that, if you look back and you continue to dwell on these things, it will freeze you.
Yes.
And you will not be able to move forward.
Yeah. And you mean related to Lot's wife?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that was very similar to one of the conclusions that I came to based on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The sexual relations, that whole thing throws me for a loop. I think, it's such an evil city and filled with such evil that they probably, I want to say that maybe they at least know they're holy men or they know that they're angels, and they want to take that away. Like when you are surrounded by, and when you go into the mob mentality, you want to destroy everything that could be good.
I hadn't thought about that. I like that.
And that would take that away from it. What about you?
Yeah, so as far as the holy men wanting to defile the angels, I would say, let's see, what did I write down about that right there? So, well, first of all, I think that as far as Lot offering up his virgin daughters to be molested by these men instead of the angels, I think that, like you said, that might be foreshadowing about sacrificing your own and what is dear to you. Let's see, I wrote down, is this about sacrificing your own blood for the sake of protecting people that are doing right by God? But that doesn't seem to remedy the situation to me. It's like making this terrible thing happen to somebody that, well, more than one person that you care about, doesn't really, it's not less heavy than these holy men, these angels, whoever they may be, being violated by these people. But I definitely agree that, maybe they knew that these were holy men. I think it's kind of implied that they knew that these were angels. Either that or they just had some feeling. But it could be that because they are living such just terrible, sinful lives, that seeing these examples of ultimate good might just bring about feelings of rage that make them want to destroy that because it reminds them of how terrible and shitty they
Yeah.
are. Very similar to the Cain and Abel story. You know, it's like Cain saw Abel as this ideal man that he should have tried to turn himself into, but that was too hard for him to pursue, becoming this better person. So instead, he just destroyed it. Maybe the people of Sodom are kind of that same mentality, where they see these examples of people that are actually, you know, doing right by God, and instead of looking at them as an inspiration or even just leaving them the fuck alone, they're like, no, too much for us to handle. We don't want that. Let's just get rid of them. Let's bring them down to our level.
Yeah.
And I think it might even be a little bit going a little bit beyond the Cain and Abel story, where it's like they're not even just destroying the ideal rather. They're dragging them down to their level, which is absolutely something that you can experience whenever you're encountering people that are just not doing what they should be doing, people that are just wasting their time fucking around, being shitty people. Like, I think of the people that I met out at the club scene that were just heavy into drugs, not doing anything productive with any of their time. If a good person came around them, it was almost like they did everything in their power to try and just like drag them into that shitty way of being.
Assimilate them.
Yeah.
It takes the moral burden off of them of becoming better people. It's the easier route.
Right. Yeah. Again, because you don't have to look at this example of somebody that is actually doing good and has their shit together. You can just bring them into your life of turmoil. And now we're equals, you know, and it was a hell of a lot easier for me to ruin you than it was to actually better myself.
Right.
Yeah. And let's see, as far as, we'll go back to the visitors visiting Abraham in the beginning, and him offering them hospitality. So, like I said, the identity of those men is left pretty ambiguous. We don't know if they're holy men. We don't know if they're angels. We don't know if one of them is God because of the way it's phrased across multiple different versions of the Bible. It's left very open to interpretation, and I think that's intentional. My initial thoughts were maybe Abraham's offerings to these guys was a sign of thanks for visiting on God's behalf, because it is mentioned that the Lord visited him, and because Abraham is familiar with the Lord, he might have had some inkling of an idea that, yes, these people are here on God's behalf. And so it's just a symbol of thanks for coming to me on behalf of this I don't know, good idea of I don't know how to phrase it. Just thank you for coming here to bring me the word of somebody who has my best interests in mind. On the other hand, it could be symbolic of the idea that he might not know that they have anything to do with God, because again, it's totally up in the air to interpretation. I don't know if he knows that they are here on behalf of God. It could be just hinting at the idea that you should be hospitable to people. It's like the quote from Jesus that you brought up. I believe it was last time we were recording, that he said, that which you do to the lowest of human beings, you also do to me. So it's important that you treat everybody with respect, as if they have the potential to be good, to do good, even though they also have the potential to be harmful. You don't know. You know, it's everybody that you encounter might have something to offer to you. And I don't mean anything material or even just any sort of tangible benefit.
Even a new insight into life, let's say. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, they might have something worth bringing to the table for you.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like as I've seen in my life, bringing around new people, and as I've grown older and my filter gets better at filtering in the right people and filtering out the wrong people, you enrich your life so much by meeting these new people. Like, there's boundless opportunity, infinite opportunity. Maybe in this scenario, like her wife or his wife was never capable of maybe having children again, they thought. But when you let these new people into your life, all sorts of new opportunities are presented to you that you never thought possible.
Sure. And even if age is a difficult subject with the Bible. You know, I mean, a couple of chapters ago, 100 would have been a young man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so. But even if we are taking the literal problem at hand, like I haven't been able to bear a child, you know, maybe inviting a new person into your life could say, this new person that you invite into your life maybe can introduce you to a doctor that has some sort of workaround for you being barren at a young age. You know, they're 100 at this point, so they're not young. And that's, I guess we should have mentioned that earlier. They are 100 at this point, which is why Sarah laughed whenever this holy man said that in a year's time, I'm going to come back and you're going to have a son. But just in a general sense, if you've been struggling with something for a long time, inviting new people into your life that can bring new perspectives and new ideas to you might help you remedy this situation that you've been struggling to remedy.
Can I say one thing on that?
Absolutely.
And this is kind of happened when Jack entered my life, and like he was so great at being open about his faults and like what, you know, if he pooped himself, he would say it immediately, right? And taking that power away from other people. But I say that to say, like, it took me a while to realize that when I am struggling with something, I need to, it's like almost essential that I need to let that out to people. Because you can't get help if you are in that alone. You can't get help if you are not telling people, because then people are going to come to you, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And then now that perspective is open to you. And if you're not telling people about your struggles, you're going to be in that alone, and you're not going to be able to, you know, potentially get help from someone outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can definitely have productive discussions with yourself about that kind of thing, and maybe even come to new revelations that you may not have come to, say, a year ago if you tried to have the exact same conversation with yourself. But bringing in an outside perspective is extremely beneficial because people think differently than you, and so they might be able to look at this from just a completely different point of view as far as how they would assess this situation. And so they might bring new solutions to the table that you would have never even thought of as being feasible or even have thought of at all.
Right.
Much less, you know, think about them and then think, yeah, maybe that could work. The idea might never even come to your head.
Right.
If
Totally.
You don't,
Yeah. Did you have more to say on that, or?
Yeah. So just, and beyond that, I lost my train of thought, but did you have something to add to
well,
that?
something that you said there just made me think of something, and like basically what we've been talking about in life in general. You're a totally different person than you were last year. This kind of accentuates why it's so important to always be developing, because that new person a year from now is going to have new perspectives for you that you would have never otherwise had. So that's like, it's so important to continue to develop, because in continuing to develop, you are creating a new person that has new perspectives that can create new solutions for you.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you're just developing new ways of thinking and processing and problem solving as you develop yourself. That I think that's just part of developing yourself psychologically. You know, hopefully that's going to be a productive development, and so you are going to develop hopefully productive ways of problem solving and just assessing situations, even if it's not necessarily a problematic situation, but, you know, just a situation comes to the table. Let's think about this. What's going on? You know, maybe hopefully over time, as you're working on yourself, you'll develop the ability to just more accurately and more precisely assess what is happening around you. Yeah. And then what, bringing new ideas to the table. It's going to bother me. I fucking hate when that happens. I know. So inviting these new people into your life is also a little bit similar to the idea of the need for going outside of your comfort zone, entering and exploring the unfamiliar. New people are not familiar to you. They are new. it obviously you are going to be more comfortable if you are just constantly interacting with the same people all the time, or just relying on yourself for introspection into the difficult situations that you may be dealing with. But even though it might be a little bit unnerving or uncomfortable for you to allow other people into your life and to allow to feel, or to allow to know how you are feeling, it's important that you do that because of everything that we just said. They might be able to genuinely help you. Even though that idea is somewhat scary, it could be worth it. And these strangers coming to him and him being so immediately hospitable to them, I think is a symbol of his just willingness to invite that unexplored territory into his life. It's not out of ignorance for the potential that they might be harmful people, which, I mentioned that's a possibility whenever new people come into your life. They might not be the best for you, but Abraham has gone to war. He has saved his kidnapped family member from corrupt kings. He knows that people have the potential to be awful, so it's not like he is coming from a completely uninformed point of view when he is meeting these new people as far as their potential for bad. He knows that that potential is there, but he is hospitable to them anyway, which I think is just, it alludes to the idea that you need to be willing to put yourself out there, and even if that means potentially putting yourself in harm's way, because that's not definite. Even though it is possible, you need to be aware of that possibility, but ultimately you also need to be willing to put that possibility aside for the sake of inviting somebody into your life that might be a genuine net benefit for you.
Totally. That which is worth attaining is worth the risk.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. Then did you have anything else on that? Okay. So we'll go to Abraham and Sarah being told that they will have a son within a year. So Sarah laughs whenever she is initially told that she's going to have a son within a year, because she's so old, she's past childbearing age. And I think that that's just an example of questioning your higher self's will, basically. These either God or messengers from God are telling her this is possible and it is going to happen, and she just scoffs at it. And that's when God asks, is anything beyond my power? Basically, is there anything that I can't do? Or as far as our interpretation of what God is there anything that you cannot achieve if you genuinely put your mind to it and follow me, the best you that does exist within yourself? If you don't listen to that, can you not achieve even that which seems like it's a fucking miracle and totally impossible? So I thought that was really interesting. Let's see. God asks why Sarah laughed, and asks, is anything beyond my power? Does this imply that anything is possible for your higher self, even that which seems absolutely impossible? Ultimately, what I take away from that is that you shouldn't allow your current self, in the way that you're currently thinking in your current situation, to totally dismiss the possibility for what you can become. Like, don't allow your current state of being to eliminate your potential for either being better or achieving what you want to achieve. I think this is more specifically about achieving what you want to achieve, because it's not like she is trying to become a new person. Sure. They want a child, and that's ultimately their goal. But like, don't allow who you are right now and your shortcomings to sway you from just shooting for what you want, aiming higher, trying to get these things that you genuinely want. Because if you pursue it wholeheartedly, you can do it. Nobody that has become a massive success in life to any degree. You know, I don't just mean like super famous people, super rich people, but people that are just content with their life, rightfully so. You know, they're living a modest life, they're happy, married with a family, they've got a house, they've got a car, they like their job. They didn't get there by constantly telling themselves, I'm going to be miserable forever. Like it's not a productive mode of thinking. And likewise, I think that that's kind of what Sarah's mindset symbolizes here. Just thinking, I can't have a kid. That's not going to happen. I'm too old. And God's telling her, no, it's possible. It's possible. Listen to me. It's going to happen. So I just think that might be, again, alluding to the fact that, or alluding to the idea that you need to listen to that higher you, that better version of you that exists within you.
Yeah, I think, and children to me often represent future. Maybe, you know, and even in those moments of despair and the moments of, well, I can never have a kid, I can never be happy, I can never have a future. Listen to God, walk with God, and he will show you that potential is possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that you bring up the symbolism of just the future through the children, because that completely aligns with the kind of takeaway that I got from it. I'm biased towards liking that interpretation that you gave right there because it fits mine. But no, I definitely agree with that, in that children do absolutely symbolize potential, the future. So don't deny the possibility for this future that you want, this better future, by just accepting your current situation if you are not completely satisfied with it. You know, you want this better future? Listen to God. Do what he says. It's possible. Yeah. And agreed. Let's see. Then Sarah lies and says she didn't laugh because she was afraid. And it says that in the Bible, you know, whenever God asks, why'd she laugh? She's like, I didn't laugh. And she says this because she was afraid, you know, which, understandable, being afraid of the idea that God knows that you laughed at him, especially given his
Old
track
Testament
record.
God.
Yeah, that was before God had his son and mellowed out a little bit. But he doesn't get mad. He just says, no, you did laugh. Yeah, which I think is pretty funny.
You did.
Honestly. He's
just
like,
say it.
Just
You
admit it. You laughed. We all know you laughed. And I think that my interpretation of that bit specifically is very surface level, and I don't know if it needs to be read into even more. You know, like going back to the circumcision thing, even when I looked into much smarter people's interpretation of that story, they came to the same seemingly surface level conclusion. So it's like maybe some of these messages are meant to just be left at the kind of surface level takeaways that you can find. But it's like, you know, when you're lying. So like your higher self knows when you are questioning its will and almost denying it in such a way that you are not going to do what it's telling you to do. So it's like when you are not doing everything in your power to just do what your higher self knows what's best for you, you know it. I think that's where that gets left for me. I don't know if you have anything to build off of that.
Whether the Bible meant for this interpretation or not, I can take this into like a real world experience of, we see kids that are truly happy doing what they do, like a theater kid who truly enjoys theater. And when you try to join the mob, you know, you will laugh at them. Let's say if you think about someone in high school laughing at someone who loves doing what they do, like, it's because we're afraid. It's not because it's not because we're cooler than them. It's not because of any of these things. It's genuinely, we are afraid, and we are almost envy that ability. At least for me, I always envied the ability of people to be free with themselves and be happy and content with who they are, what their interests are. And so I would try to justify it myself by laughing at them.
Do you mean, so you used like a theater kid
Yeah, let's
as an
say that,
example.
yeah.
So you mean just somebody that has a deep passion for something that is thought of generally by, most of the other kids as being kind of like
Dorky or something, yeah.
and so you would join in and just kind of poking fun at
Yep.
them for it, as opposed to appreciating the fact
Yep.
that they are just being themselves and happy doing that.
And yeah, totally. And God and myself appreciated that.
Yeah.
God knew. Exactly.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's easier to just follow along with the mob and like try to fit in with the crowd, as opposed to just kind of almost getting on that nerdy kid's level. Like he's, I would say, farther along than the mob in this point, in that in this example, in that he is able to say, fuck them, I don't care what they think about me, I like doing theater, whatever it may be. Henry playing the saxophone when he was younger.
Fucking such a cool instrument. I wish I learned.
It is a cool instrument, but it's not like, kids don't think of it that way.
Right.
And I don't remember ever thinking like, oh, what a dork for playing the sax. But I mean, I'm biased towards Henry positively. He grew up with him. So I just kind of inherently, we would poke fun at each other normally. You just to a normal degree. I don't mean like all the time, but to a normal degree, like friends do. But it was never like playing the saxophone, you fucking nerd, But no, I could absolutely agree with that 100%. Where it's definitely a lot easier to just follow the mob and not appreciate the fact that even though in your mind, like, this person is pursuing something that they're passionate about, at a subconscious level, this.
Right.
As a kid especially, you might not recognize that, but some part of you does know they're not doing anything wrong, and you have no reason to make fun of them. I do remember, in middle school, a couple of people in my class that I would just kind of fuck with. I wouldn't say that I ever bullied anybody, but I would just like goof around with Josh. We were always sat alphabetically, or in some of our classes at least, and his last name also starts with a W, so he was right in front of me, and so I would just do little shit like, it was when I was into WWE, so you know how DX would always go, let's get ready to suck it. I would just go, we had these chairs that were attached to the desks, and they were attached by these bars that, like, they would rest on the floor here, and then they kind of curved up to the back of the chair, and I would grab onto these bars and just go, let's get ready to vibrate, and then I would just shake the chair really hard, and he would turn around and be like, stop, I wasn't being like vicious and mean, I was just fucking with him, but it only took me like a year after graduating middle school for me to like feel bad about that, so and I reached out to him to apologize for it, and he was like, oh man, I never thought that you were being mean to me or anything. I thought it was kind of funny, which I was very thankful for. But it's like I'm getting off on this tangent just because it is possible for you, even as a child, to eventually realize that you are just kind of going along with the mob. And I can't really think of any people at Ambrose that were really bullied. I'm sure there were, but he was one of the kids that would just kind of get messed with a lot. We were always friendly to him, but people messed with him, so I also messed with him, and then I, like, a year later, felt bad about it. So you can absolutely come to that conclusion, even as a very ignorant child.
Totally.
And I don't mean every child is ignorant, but just relative to adulthood, children are absolutely ignorant compared to adults for the most part. Obviously there are exceptions. There are some very stupid and ignorant adults.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
And I'll say a couple more things on this real quick.
Absolutely, yeah. Jump in whenever. I know I kind of
please
speak during these
No,
things.
No, definitely. That's
full of caffeine, and I just
Prime.
enjoy these conversations. Yeah, Prime Energy, brought to you by Prime Energy.
Not
the hydration drink though. That's bullshit.
In thinking back of like laughing at the theater kid, let's say, as this example. And by the way, my senior year I did theater. I wish I had done it all 4 years. But
there's so many things I wish I would have gotten into younger.
Man. we might be frozen if we might turn into salt if we continue to look back on that.
I know. It's not important. It's just important that we keep pursuing it to our fullest ability now.
Yes. Even poking fun of that theater kid, we are the mob, and they are Lot, or they are the angels, right? Like,
yeah.
We want to tear them down, in a sense. Even if we aren't actively doing it, we want to tear them down in our minds, let's say. But my favorite quote of all time, I'm not sure if I've said it on the podcast or not, but it's by Friedrich Nietzsche. It's man's maturity is to have regained the innocence of a child at play. And there's a couple different variations of that, but that's the one that I recall.
Yeah.
But man's maturity is to have regained the innocence of a child at play. And when you look at someone that is totally into what they're doing, that is mature. Like, you look at a scientist, it's like I always think of like the zany scientist who's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I think people mistake energy for maturity, or for immaturity. Excuse me. Whereas those people are the most mature because they are present and free. Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm a big fan of a lot of Nietzsche's philosophy. I need to become more familiar with it because I'm not much of a reader generally. I mean, the reading that I've done through the Bible for this show is more reading than I've done in fucking years. But I need to download an audio version of one of his books and listen to it in the near future. But no, he's got a lot of quotes about just reviving that childlike sense of just freedom, and
psychological freedom and wonder. Yes, absolutely. Like one of his quotes is, and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. It's just like you said, the zany scientist. It's like, he seems zany to you because you are incapable of seeing just the joy and wonder that he is experiencing within his mind. So you look at him and you think that's an eccentric weirdo. No, he's just happy. He's just fulfilled.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I really like that quote.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I agree with it 100%.
I got goosebumps when you said the other one, the can't hear the music.
I think I put that on one of my whenever I did that modeling shoot. Just one of the pictures that my friend Melanie and I took together. We just both had huge smiles on our faces. It was a good time, and it made me think of that quote.
Oh, nice.
I really like that. Great person. Shout out to Melanie. Hope you're doing well. Last I saw, you were in Ireland.
Go Melanie.
I'm jealous. Yeah, go Melanie. Great gal. Let's see. So, God considers not telling Abraham that he will destroy Sodom. I kind of touched on what my interpretation on that was, which is like, is it possible for our subconscious to act without our conscious self realizing it? Like it maybe that suggests that we might subconsciously fight to abolish evil and wrongdoing without even realizing it. Maybe that's what God not wanting to tell Abraham what he was going to do to Sodom implies. Like, maybe this is too difficult for me to articulate within my own mind, even though I have already realized this is what I need to do. But I just can't quite say that to myself. Even though I'm already kind of acting on it and considering acting on it, I'm not even really aware of that fact. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
I like that a lot. I think I struggle with that often in general, of like, this doesn't feel right. My subconscious knows it doesn't feel right, but I can't articulate it, and when I can't express it, I don't know if I'm actually right or not. It's hard for me to determine. Yeah.
When you and I've struggled with the same thing, where I have a general sense of something's wrong here, something is incorrect, I need to be doing something, and maybe I'm already doing it to a certain degree. But if you aren't able to articulate that idea to yourself, you might just, I don't know. You might just struggle in realizing what you're actually doing, maybe, even if it is beneficial. It's, again, right now I'm having trouble articulating the idea. Okay, so then God deems Sodom and Gomorrah beyond salvation, or at least partially so, because obviously he sends the holy men to investigate, but he's kind of come to the conclusion that I'm pretty sure these places need to be destroyed. And that's what sparks Abraham asking him, well, what if there are 50 people there that are worth saving? Then will you destroy the city? What if it's only 40? What if it's only 30, 20, 10? Is it really worth totally eliminating these cities if there are good people there? You know, it's like, it's not worth completely, let's see, how can I put this? Eliminating bad is not worth also eliminating good, which...
There's never been a better time, and I mean, it's pretty prevalent for the times going on right now in the Middle East.
How do you mean?
Well, between Israel and Palestine, or Israel and the Israelis and Hamas. I mean, this quote this verse right here is destroying the whole city. You know, even if it sacrifices 50 people, is it worth it? Like, never been a better time for this verse to be prevalent.
Yeah, and again, I just think that is alluding to, you know, it's not worth eliminating the potential for this place to become better if that potential is there. You know, even though it is a shithole right now that is just full of sin and people living incorrectly, what if it could be saved? What if it does have a chance at salvation? It's not worth completely destroying if that chance is there. Because I think we can kind of step back a little bit from thinking about, you know, like 10 people versus the rest of the population of the city, but think of those people as the potential for this city to become better. You know, almost instead of thinking it as a city full of good and bad people, think of it as a person full of good and bad ideas. You know, if you have 1,000 negative traits, but 5 good ones, should we focus more heavily on just, should we deem you as a terrible person because you have all of these negative traits, inclinations, the potential to become bad overall, or if you are just kind of bad overall, is it worth deeming you as irredeemable as opposed to really focusing down on this small little bit of good that is within you? And I would say no. I think you should focus on that good and try to make those more prominent. You know, Jordan Peterson always talks about how it's important to burn off the dead wood that is a part of you, everything that is just not valuable to you and not conducive to creating a better future and a better life for yourself. It's far more valuable to start working on getting rid of that dead wood so that the healthier parts of you can shine through, as opposed to just accepting that, nah, I'm a piece of shit and I'm just going to allow that to keep happening and destroy myself, you know, as opposed to destroying Sodom. You could think of that as just being self-destructive, maybe. Again, we're not going to come up with definite answers here. That's not really the goal. But let's see. So then we get to holy men entering Sodom, meeting Lot. Lot is clearly an example of good within the city of Sodom. But he and his people are not enough to redeem the entire city. And I don't know if that kind of throws a wrench into that idea that I just came up with, where it is more about focusing on these smaller parts, these smaller good parts of yourself, as opposed to the much more prominent bad parts of yourself. Maybe it is about getting away from negative situations, or maybe it's, I don't know.
I have an interpretation that potentially,
go on.
if you look at a city as a foundation point, When God destroys cities, I'm starting to think that foundation in yourself needs to be completely destroyed. If that's a negative, evil foundation, that whole foundation needs to be destroyed. Not necessarily people, but that whole foundation, that foundation that's built on sand, it needs to be destroyed, and it needs to be replaced in an area on good, solid ground where you can build a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the only takeaway I have of that so far.
And do you mean if we're thinking about this as as it relates to like your foundation as a person, or are you
your foundation as a person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I could see that where it's almost like, no, you need to completely restart.
Yeah.
Like you are from the ground up fucked up, and so we need to just completely reinvent you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to completely reinvent yourself from the foundation. So yeah, I could definitely get on board with that. Definitely.
And the people that are escaping, let's say, that from this city, then when there are instances of Lot escaping, or those are the pieces of good in you that need to escape that first before you destroy that foundation. Going back to your point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Make sure that you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Essentially,
right.
You need to keep these good parts of you safe and away from the destruction of this terrible foundation so that you have a chance of rebuilding from the ground up on a better foundation. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Cool. Yeah, that wrench, we took that wrench right out after we threw it in.
Right out.
Think you could fucking punk us, your Bible ass? Hell no. We in this bitch.
We out here.
Okay.
All right, let's see. And the men of Sodom are angry. And they want to violate Lot for denying them the ability to violate the angels. It's interesting. Then holy men save Lot and blind the attackers. Is that so? I mean, just as far as the story goes, I would say that they do this in appreciation of him offering his own blood in place of them to be violated. But I don't know what the grand takeaway from that might be. Maybe it's just that was the sign to, we'll say, Lot's higher self, God, Lot's God, that he was redeemable, even though he was surrounded by terrible people living in this city full of sin, in that he was willing to sacrifice something so important to him. His higher self recognized, you are better than these terrible people, and you need to get out of here. You need to separate yourself from these terrible people, from this terrible place, because you are not beyond redemption. The fact that you are willing to sacrifice something so precious to you in order to help these strangers, or I don't know how to interpret who they are to him at this point. Again, it's intentionally left very ambiguous, or at least I think it was intentional. But I think it's something to the effect of, the fact that he was willing to sacrifice something so important to him for these strangers, for these holy people, whoever they were, was symbolic of the idea that he was in fact beyond salvation. And so that's why these people recognized, okay, you are not part of the bad within this city, and so you need to get out of here before it is razed to the ground. And, again, just going back to your point of, you need to get away from the destruction of your shitty foundation. If you have built yourself upon a shitty foundation, at some point something's going to have to trigger that realization. And again, just going back to anytime we're talking about living in a shitty way, I'm going to go back to my time in the club scene, because that's just when I was fucking off and surrounded by shit.
In the city of Sodom.
In the city of Sodom, 100%. That's Turn Up Tuesday. They should have just called it City of Sodom. But especially since they're all boofing drugs over there.
It's a great and terrible name for a club.
City of Sodom, yeah. But I would say that I never fully partook in that shitty behavior.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely didn't, because I wasn't out here trying to prey upon people.
Yeah.
But I was still allowing myself to be surrounded by people that were acting that way. And I can't put my finger on exactly what made me realize I needed to get the hell away from that, but there was something. Eventually something just clicked. And maybe that's, just an example of that happening. Lot did something very selfless, or at least offered to do something very selfless in order to save these good people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what that's alluding to. I'm not sure. I do struggle a little bit with that part.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. Now, again, I'm not 100% sure why Lot is so convinced that he will die or just be overtaken by doom if he runs to the hills, because they tell him run to the hills, and he says, I can't run to the hills, I'll die. So he asks if he can go to the city instead, and then after this whole story ends, it turns out he does go into the hills and into a cave, and we'll get into that story next, which is a fun one.
Great.
But I'm wondering if maybe that's because a part of him was very accustomed to living in this place that is full of sin.
Familiarity.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like he's become familiar with this terrible place that he lived in. And even though he knows it's terrible, and it's become very apparent to him in the last few minutes how goddamn terrible it is, it can still be hard to leave that behind because, again, it's familiar. It's something that he has grown accustomed to and is now comfortable with.
And he's not quite ready to go to the hills, because if you think about the hills, when you're on a hill, you have a perspective over everything under you. You can see clearly.
Yeah, almost like he's not quite ready for his eyes to be opened to how terrible everything was. Maybe it's going to be hard for him to accept his past once he gets to the hills, and it'll be difficult for him to just see from this new perspective how terribly he was living, or at least how terrible the people around him were, and how potentially consumed by that he had become, if at all. We don't know. As evidenced in the story, he still is a good person, but he could have been consumed by the poor behavior there to a certain extent. Doesn't go into a whole lot of detail about his life in Sodom before this, but who knows? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm wondering. Well,
I thought you were having a Joe Biden there for a second.
no, I'm thinking. So I'm wondering if there's also something in there about it being more beneficial to be willing to just die alone rather than living surrounded by evil. They are telling him to run into the hills, even though that might be potentially dangerous for him. This is a more literal, interpretation than the one we just came to, but maybe it's worth risking losing your life living by your principles, or at least not living in a place that is so heavily against
Actively
your
working
principles.
against them, yeah.
Exactly. Actively working against your principles. Maybe it's better to die alone than to live that way. Could be. I don't know. That's a pretty surface level interpretation, and I think that we've taken it a little bit farther than that, and I think that those are kind of better interpretations. But that was just one thought that I had as I was reading into it. Okay, so then we get to the point where they are actually fleeing from the city. The angels tell him, leave, get your people, get the hell out of here. You guys aren't beyond salvation. The rest of the city is. Get the fuck out of here. As they're running away, like we said, Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt for it. Now, I have a couple of ideas as to why that might have happened. It could be that, well, first of all, like you said, it could be if you're looking back on your past, you could become frozen. You know, you might it might freeze you. You might stop being productive and stop moving towards this better existence if you are focused on the past and dwelling in the past that you need to get the hell away from. So it could also just be a punishment for disobeying your higher self. You know, if you don't do what your higher self tells you to do, you might suffer for it. You know, God told them not to look back, or the angels told them not to, whatever. Told her not to look back, and she looked back, and so she suffered for it. Was turned to a pillar of salt. She also may have been punished for hesitating to pursue her new life instead of just completely dismissing it. You know, Sodom was a terrible place. It maybe part of her longed to return to that terrible way of living because, like we said, familiarity is comfortable. So maybe even though she knew it was terrible and it would have been bad for her to go back, part of her still might have wanted to do that, even though she knew better. And rightfully, she was punished for it, and I would say that is accurate. You will suffer for it. You will be frozen as far as your progress goes if you are dwelling on that past. If you know it's bad for you, why are you longing to go back there? Why would you want, even though you are familiar with it and you may have grown comfortable with it, you know it was bad for you. So why on earth would you even think about going back to this place that was just terrible for you? So that could be part of it. Maybe she was overtaken by that evil to some degree. Again, we really don't know because it doesn't talk a whole lot about their lives while they were living there. You know, so maybe she and Lot were participating in that sin to a certain degree, and she might have grown accustomed to living in sin. An interesting point is that the Hebrew for pillar specifically refers to a garrison, or like something that's set up for people to watch over things with. And Sodom and Gomorrah are thought to have been pretty close to the Dead Sea. So if they're running for the hills and she's turned into a pillar of salt, she is now permanently overlooking this place where life cannot exist. You know, this heavily salinated, I think is the way, very salt-rich lake where nothing can survive. So that was just an interesting point to me. It doesn't just say she's coated in salt. She is turned to a pillar of salt. So she is almost turned into something that will permanently be watching over an area where life is just not viable.
Interesting.
And again, that just might relate to, you know, the idea that if you are looking back on this life that you used to live and missing it to any degree that was wrong for you, you're not going to live fulfillingly. You are not going to have a fulfilled and productive life. And so she is permanently stuck as a pillar of salt looking over this completely devoid of life area, this area that is completely devoid of life. I do think it's interesting also that salt it's not usually used as a negative symbol in the Bible. It's often a part of sacrifice. I think Leviticus and Ezekiel were a couple of books where salt was specifically mentioned, where it's like, I need you to sacrifice these things, and these sacrifices shall be spiced with salt or seasoned with salt, whatever it says. So maybe she sacrificed herself to a certain degree by being so focused on this sinful past or living surrounded by sin. She is sacrificing her potential.
I like that. Yeah. I could totally get behind that. That's cool.
Yeah. And any grand takeaways from you related to this story?
I think continuing to move forward and looking forward, not just moving forward, but looking forward and looking ahead where you are going, and creating the right environment for yourself and being acutely aware of your environment and who you're surrounding yourself with, the activities that you're taking part in. Just really heavily focusing on, are these things moving me in the right direction or in the wrong direction? And that's hard to do. And you can be blind to that sometimes, but maybe something like this Bible verse can, help people reflect on that.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, mine pretty similar. I think that it's extremely important to recognize when you are just in a bad spot, in a bad place. Sodom, I think, just symbolizes living in a state of not necessarily living in a state of a lack of productivity, but just not setting yourself up for success as well as you could be. Living in Sodom, it could be just akin to surrounding yourself with people that don't have your best interests in mind, having friends that aren't really your friends. They're the people that we talked about earlier that are actively trying to tear you down when you do good, or people that have, it just made it very apparent that they don't want the best for you, maybe even want the worst for you. And it's extremely important to get the hell away from those people if you want any chance of success. If you have hard evidence that somebody, a group of people, a place, whatever it may be, is detrimental to your self-development and you moving forward to a better life, you need to get the hell away and not look back. You need to keep moving forward, keep focusing forward, and just fucking get away. Don't ignore the signs that are given to you that make it very apparent that you have to get away from whatever this bad situation may be. That's my main takeaway from it.
Amen.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed. We're glad that we came to some more concrete and confident just takeaways from this story. Like I said, watching the last one back, I think we did better than we initially felt. It was just the circumcision thing left us feeling like, what the hell does this even mean? But again, after listening to more intelligent people talk about it, they kind of came to the same conclusion. So it's like, maybe that's it. I don't know. Yeah.
Get your circumcision.
Get it.
It's a government is making you get your circumcision. Fight back. Fight back against the government making you. I am anti-circumcised.
Assalamu alaikum, my niggas.
Peace.